The nation was startled by an official communication just after the hour had passed on the palace clock. In 7 Chile, what had previously been discussed behind palace doors burst into a public disaster in a matter of minutes. Prince Louis is the topic. A royal mother was brought to her knees by the force of the music. There were other things streaming besides Catherine's tears. Questions, anxiety, and a frantic desire for solutions were also present. What might be so catastrophic that it would rock the House of Windsor's very foundations? Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any updates before we delve further into what this actually implies for the royal family. Because there was no ceremony or certainty associated with this type of palace proclamation, this type strikes the country's throat like a chilly hand, brief, restrained, and extremely cautious with each word. This type of statement warns without providing an explanation, and the royal machine did what it normally does in situations like this practically instantly. It made an effort to remain composed. It made an effort to condense the message. It made an effort to shield the crown from fear. The public, however, was not at ease. The term tragic news did more than only draw attention. They were blown away by it. The monarchy never takes those 2 words that are inscribed in official language lightly. That phrase is saved for times when they are unable to hide, soften, or simply remain silent. Every major newsroom went into emergency mode in a matter of minutes. Producers began contacting people they hadn't spoken to in a long time. Royal journalists started speaking more quickly, walking quickly, and refusing to be recorded. Suddenly, the question was not if something had occurred, but rather how serious it was and how long they had known. Due to the fact that the palace announcement was not unexpected, people had already begun to notice something uncomfortable that didn't fit the official story, and it collided with that. A few hours prior, Catherine was spotted leaving Kensington with an unfamiliar-looking face instead of her typical calm gait. Her eyes weren't simply worn out, they appeared injured, and the people closest to the royal family saw something unsettling. She wasn't surrounded by the usual calm formation of staff. There was no typical choreography. The royal regime had lost its peaceful perfection. It was a crack so loud it seemed like a scream for a woman who had been educated to withstand the gaze of the world with composure. The whispers started at that point. Some said it was disease, an unexpected medical emergency that compelled medical professionals to act right away. Others maintained that it was an accident that occurred out of the blue, with no time for preparation and no opportunity to shape the story. The most horrifying theory, however, is that this wasn't a novel idea, that the palace struggled to control this for a considerable amount of time until it eventually escaped. Because unless it has no other option, the monarchy does not confirm tragic news. The royal family has managed to keep quiet despite scandals, betrayals, splits, and even public indignation. Therefore, when choosing to talk in this way, it indicates that the truth is already leaking out through employees, insiders, or the kind of private terror that cannot be covered up by press releases. And the response spread like wildfire on social media. Pray for Louis started to gain popularity more quickly than anyone had anticipated. Instead of merely expressing sorrow, they were expressing terror. Supporters, parents, and grandparents are all watching Louis's previous videos with fresh eyes, reliving each scene with and looking for clues. Was he silent when he looked that way? Was he worn out? Was that a forced smile? All of a sudden, everyone was a detective. They sensed something profoundly wrong lurking behind the serenity of the palace, not because they wanted drama. And Catherine was in the center of it all. Queen, not the future. Not the flawlessly polished person the world believes it knows, not the regal icon. Just a mother dealing with something that no title can shield you from. Catherine isn't crying for the cameras if this awful news is what it sounds like. She is sobbing because her child is experiencing something. The palace is aware that the world will soon learn. However, there is a web of secrets hidden underneath the palace's well-crafted statement. And the true tale starts in a little-known period of Louis's life that the monarchy made a valiant effort to conceal. Princess Catherine carried her trademark smile as armor for years. Beneath the glowing public persona, however, was a mother fighting a silent storm. Few were aware of the silent hospital stays. Even fewer were able to comprehend the terror that drove her guarded stare at Louis. The reality, a diagnosis that has remained a royal secret up to this point. What seemed to be a typical, active royal upbringing was subtly overshadowed by personal issues that Catherine never discussed in public. There were hints from Louis's early achievements: speech delays, irregular motor coordination, gentle prodding from royal nannies, and courteously recommending additional testing. However, Catherine was the one who spotted what others overlooked, since she was always intuitive and sensitive. She started the first of many consultations, quiet, incognito trips to specialized clinics behind the royal walls. International specialists have been flown in for developmental exams, neurological evaluations, and aliases. It was more than a precaution. It was calm disguised as desperation. Nevertheless, Catherine would not allow anyone else to take charge. She didn't trust formality with Louis, even though precedent required a network of royal aides to handle every medical and personal detail. Not her youngest, not this time. Every stage, every test, every tear, she insisted on being present. Her schedule changed discreetly, her engagements were quietly cancelled, yet her smile remained constant. Those in the closest inner circle realized that this was not your typical health issue. Healing was not the subject of the inquiries. They dealt with coping, managing, getting ready, and possibly most unsettling of all, accepting. Even Queen Elizabeth was discreetly informed of the situation during her final months. In response, she said a single, terrifyingly serious phrase: "Protect not only the child, but also the crown." It was more than just a warning. It was a royal order that put Charles in a situation he had long feared, deciding between tradition and openness. William and Catherine's emotional suffering worsened inside Kensington's cramped walls. The disagreement about how to handle Louis's illness widened as it became more apparent in private. William advised prudence, always keeping legacy in mind. Driven by maternal instinct, Catherine wanted to be honest, even if it meant being scrutinized. Arguments started to happen more often. Behind shut doors, sharp words were spoken. William was accused by Catherine of being afraid of seeming weak in public. William retorted that she was unaware of the monarchy's vulnerability. And Louis didn't know anything at all. He was innocent, grinning, laughing, drawing, and enjoying his boyhood as if the storm hadn't swirled around him. The public never saw the fissures, even as the pressure cooker tightened with each month that went by. Catherine exuded a refined grace in every appearance. With the accuracy of a sovereign and the love of a mother who understood that the world might not be nice to her son if the truth came out, she protected her son's secret. Because privacy wasn't the only factor in the choice to conceal Louis's illness, the topic was preservation. Catherine firmly felt that her boy should have a typical life, one who is not determined by royal duties or by his diagnosis. The headlines were not what she wanted. The whispers were not what she wanted. She desired for Louis to be Louis. Thus, a choice was made, a royal one, a perilous one. Don't reveal it, don't talk, keep the illusion going. For normalcy, not for power. However, no secret remains hidden forever, and the royal facade shattered in plain sight as a single tragic event disrupted the quiet. It took place away from the cameras at a private estate. However, the repercussions resounded like a war drum throughout the monarchy. A medical airlift, an unexpected collapse, and a family thrown into disarray. Now that the time had come, they could no longer keep Louis hidden from the public. In an attempt to find a moment of peace, the royal family withdrew to their rural getaway. There is no scheduled engagement and no staff beyond what is necessary. It was supposed to be calm, quiet, and everyday. However, everything changed in one horrifying instant. Louis, who had been playing close by, froze, staggered, and eventually fell. He remained still. Panic broke out right away. He was first contacted by Catherine. It is said that her cry reverberated over the fields. Emergency procedures took effect in a matter of seconds. As they radioed in for a medical helicopter, royal protection officials, equipped to handle any political threat, stood powerless. There was no security violation here. It was much worse. It was the breakdown of a youngster they had been instructed to keep safe at all costs. William, clearly disturbed, brought Louis to the emergency personnel who were waiting for him. The paramedics, who had already been informed about the possible dangers, responded swiftly, but their anxiety was evident, and their quiet during the takeoff was more audible than any siren. Unaware at first, a second team quickly took George and Charlotte from the estate. They reportedly had pallid features and received hollow, well-practiced answers to their inquiries. They were aware that something was off. They sensed it. Catherine, on the other hand, broke openly. A future queen lost all self-control for the first time in decades. As the air ambulance vanished into the sky, witnesses claim she fell on her knees, sobbed uncontrollably, and whispered Louis' name. Additionally, the Crown's internal command structure went on high alert, even though the public was still unaware of the chaos that was taking place. Every member of the hospital personnel who interacted with Prince Louis was wearing an emergency Monarch Red. Is an extremely unusual protocol that is only activated in circumstances that are thought to be crucial for royal succession or national security. Because Monarch Red isn't given for minor injuries, that designation alone sent shockwaves across the palace's infrastructure. Serious ailments are not even covered by it. It's saved for the kind of occasion that has the power to instantly change how people view the monarchy. An event when total control over information access and optics is required. Internal reports started to trickle up. Encrypted summaries given to royal handlers started using terms like neurological, unresponsive, and unknown cause. Emergency meetings were called by senior advisors. And the rumors that had dogged Louis's reputation for years had vanished. They were real, loud, and completely inevitable alarms. The story was no longer within the monarchy's authority. It was in the midst of an uncontrollable crisis. And this time, the fact that a kid, the youngest face of the monarchy, was now the focus of both domestic and international attention could not be reversed by any amount of protocol or skillfully constructed story. King Charles was forced to make a hard choice that required facing long-ignored facts as the world conjectured and insiders feared. There is a serious problem when the monarch calls an emergency council after midnight. According to sources, King Charles gave the order for all senior advisors to meet. His tone was described as icy and unyielding. This was no longer solely a family issue. Charles was tired of waiting since it posed a threat to national security. Charles was in the middle of speaking to a formal delegation overseas when the call came in. The king's demeanor reportedly changed from calm to thundering in a matter of seconds as an assistant moved forward and whispered in his ear. The speech was interrupted. The formalities were dropped. The king returned to the United Kingdom within 90 minutes. Only in times of war or personal circumstances affecting successors to the monarchy was his jet rerouted under a secret royal code. Kensington was already in disarray when Charles arrived. Royal communications were frantically trying to steer the story, but they were failing. Outside hospitals, reporters set their camp. An intelligence-level reaction had been prompted by the royal Red breach. Even worse, the family was breaking up inside the palace. The stillness was the first indication that this meeting would be unlike any other. There was no call for Camilla. No justification, no polite message, no inclusion, a conscious choice. Those closest to Charles understood that this dilemma was a sovereign's concern rather than a spouse's. This was constitutional, not just personal. An hour after his father's arrival, William was anxious, irate, and disappointed. According to reports, he urged against any early revelation, cautioning that going public could irreparably harm Louis's future and undermine the public's already shaky faith in the monarchy. And so, behind the towering walls of the palace, the truth about Prince Louis remains surrounded by silence, concern, and unanswered questions. A midnight emergency meeting, a mother brought to tears, and a royal family suddenly forced to confront a reality they had tried for so long to keep hidden. For the world watching from the outside, This moment has raised one chilling question: what is really happening inside the House of Windsor? Is this simply a private family struggle the palace is trying to protect, or the beginning of a crisis that could change the future of the royal family forever? For now, the palace remains silent, but as history has shown time and time again, secrets inside the royal family rarely stay hidden forever. And when the full truth finally emerges, it may reveal a story far more powerful than anyone expected. If you want to stay updated on every new development, royal update, and the hidden stories unfolding behind palace walls, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because when it comes to the royal family, the biggest revelations often come when the world least expects them.